Hi, Randy Johnson here. Thank you for joining me for this series on the absolute essentials of faith. This week, we're talking about never-ending judgment for those who refuse to believe. Let's watch the video and find out what that's all about.
It's the same spirit. Violent people have oppressed peaceful people and gotten away with it. And you may say, well, you know, those people that were there at Charlotte, well, they're not peaceful people. They're white supremacists, and they had guns. Yeah, they did. But most of it was rhetoric. It was rhetoric. It was the people who did the violence who caused the problem. And it's never a good idea to respond in violence. What does the Scripture say? It says, a soft answer turneth away wrath. And that's what needs to happen. But that happens. Violent people oppress peaceful people, get away with it, seemingly. Dishonest people oppress honest people and get away with it. We read stories all the time, especially of our senior citizens, that somebody comes along and takes their life savings. They lose their life savings because somebody deceives them into trusting them, some kind of investment or some kind of thing that they do. And it ends up being a lie. And they lose their savings. They lose their income, their security for their old age. So all of these things happen in human affairs, and there's injustice and a lack of righteous judgment. You know, sometimes we try to make it right in our own way. Now I'll say it. I've never been an opponent of the death penalty because of the simple fact that the Bible talks about it. The Bible talks about it. So I've never been an opponent of the death penalty, but I've listened to enough people that I realize that even though the Scripture may teach the death penalty, that doesn't always mean that human beings know how to justly apply the death penalty. You see what I'm talking about? Because what are we talking here? We're talking about righteous judgment. There has been unrighteous judgment. And even though the letter of the law might have been fulfilled, or even though the letter of the law might have been violated, the spirit of the law is often missed. And so there are innocent people who have suffered that shouldn't have suffered. And because we don't want to do that, we are willing to err on the side of letting somebody go free who should be punished, in order that we can avoid punishing somebody erroneously who shouldn't have that degree of punishment. And I can understand that kind of mercy and compassion. It's not trusting our own human judgment to be imperfect. But even if that's the case, and even if a person does escape a lawful, both spiritually lawful and morally lawful and physically lawful, even though they may escape that kind of a judgment and punishment in this life, there is still another judgment coming. Not a judgment of man, not a judgment of the judicial systems of this world, not a judgment of what we see as right or what we see as wrong, but a perfect, righteous judgment to be carried out by God Himself. And that's what the Scriptures teach. That just as there are two resurrections recorded in Scripture, there are also two judgments, one to accompany each resurrection. Now, the last time we met and we talked about the resurrection of the dead, I didn't really have the time to get into the details on both of the resurrections, and I really don't have the time to do it this morning. But the point is, the Bible teaches there are two resurrections. The first resurrection is the resurrection of the righteous. The second resurrection is the resurrection of everybody else. And each of these resurrections has a judgment that accompanies it. The first judgment follows the first resurrection, which happens after the defeat of the Antichrist by Jesus and before the millennial reign of Christ on earth. Now, I don't have a lot of time to get into eschatology and the timing of eschatological events this morning, but let me say it this way. The apocalypse is not the end of the world. The apocalypse is not the end of the world.
I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you can have notifications of future videos. Also, be sure to leave some comments down below. God bless you. Have a good week.